So, in terms of announcements at D23 for film and TV stuff, very similar to the parks in that it's a lot of just banking on recognizable IP, with a few exceptions. At least with the park, as opposed to the parks, there was, I don't think, anything original. At least with this, there's a couple original things here, but nothing to get excited about. But again, that's the point, is that they benefit from, building their whole business around recognizable IP, so you can have conventions like this. You can have D23. You can't have D23 for a movie that an original movie that no one knows about, no one cares about yet. So it's hard to get excited. But ultimately, that's not what films aren't sporting events. Films should not be just about getting people excited. They should get me excited when I'm watching them, and I'm excited about the medium of cinema. Let's take a look at the announcements here. So, got a bunch of trailers for stuff. I'll just kind of go through these, bing, bang, bong. I feel like Trump when he's like, bing, bong, bing, bong. So we got trailers for Mufasa, the Lion King, Mufasa origin story, which again feels like a corporate assignment. The first Lion King live-action experiment, if you will, despite getting poor reception, or just middling reception, got made over $1 billion. So it was inevitable that they were going to try to do something with this. It just feels completely soulless. And just watching the trailer, it feels like the CGI has gotten worse. Again, because it's just like they're expecting more output with less people and less time. The only thing that gives me pause, no pun intended, pause, is Barry Jenkins' involvement. I believe he's writing. I know he's definitely directing. It'd be weird if he wasn't also writing it. No, he's not writing it. He's not writing it. It's being written by Jeff Nathanson, who, what else did he do? He did the story for Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of Crystal Skull, and he also wrote Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, the worst Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Oh, and he also wrote the Lion King script, which was mostly just a, beat for beat copy of the animated movie. But that aside, I like Barry Jenkins. You know what I mean? I think he's a phenomenal director. Moonlight is one of my favorite movies ever. And I don't fault the guy for selling out, because I'm sure he got a very pretty penny for this. So you gotta get the bag when you can. So I'm not really gonna get mad at him one way or the other. But it just speaks to Hollywood's unceasing ability to take incredible talent and just completely ruin it, but just throwing it down the drain into this corporate assembly line way of making movies. Notably, I am not very excited for this. Something I'm a little bit more excited for is this Rachel Zegler Snow White remake. So this is really the first time they've really touched Snow White at all since that original 1937 film. Notably in the deluge of direct-to-video sequels and spin-offs and prequels of like the 90s and 2000s. Notably, Snow White never got one of those. Snow White, I think, was seen as so iconic and also just so important to the Disney brand that they didn't touch it. So we're finally getting a reinterpretation of it almost a century later. The CGI looks awful. I watched the trailer again. It's just like the movie. It looks, what's the word? It looks all mushy and desaturated in all the wrong ways and too colorful in all the wrong ways. And it's a shame because it's kind of like the Little Mermaid movie, where it's like, I love Rachel Zegler, right? I loved her in West Side Story. I also just like her in general. Like, I follow her on Twitter, right? I think she's just like a cool cat. So I don't think this is going to be on her. And she's received a lot of backlash by nature of just being a woman of color playing an iconically white role. So if you came to this video to find some compatriot in your racist, sexist bashing of Rachel Zegler, go somewhere else, right? You're not going to find that here. But what I will say is that, again, let her get the bag. I'm sure she's making a pretty penny from this. But it just doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, right? And furthermore, it defeats the purpose of the original Snow White, which was Walt Disney's attempt to prove that animation can exist in a feature-length form that is just as emotionally affecting as a live-action, a quote-unquote regular movie. And so this movie being made feels like I don't know what you would call it, the natural conclusion to this trend of these Disney remakes, which, while never explicitly said, the implication has always been, it deserves the live action treatment because live action is better and live action is more important. So we're going to remake it. So now it's like, it can be taken seriously now. And that goes against the complete purpose of that original Snow White movie. So to now have this movie being made, it just brings the whole thing full circle in a really twisted and kind of pathetic way, frankly. Also got trailers for Agatha All Along, the MCU Disney Plus series, focusing on the villain, Agatha from the WandaVision series. Again, totally missed the moment to make this. I think this would have been really great, or rather, people would have been more interested in it 2-3 years ago. I don't think anyone cares anymore. I think it's not even that it's been that long. It's only been a couple of years, but so much has happened in the 3 years since WandaVision in terms of our just like kind of malaise and kind of, we've just been kind of fed up with Marvel's output. The only thing that's exciting about this is Patti LuPone is in it, which I was not expecting when I watched this trailer. And continuing on with underwhelming trailers, we have the trailer for the Disney Plus show Star Wars Skeleton Crew, which basically the idea is like E.T. but in the Star Wars universe. So it's going to be focusing on a group of kids. So it's almost like Goonies or E.T., like I said. And it features like space suburbs. By space, obviously it's not in space, it's on a planet, but the idea is like it's like Star Wars' version of suburbs. And again, like all of this, it just looks desaturated and mushy and just not visually appealing at all. But I saw a tweet that was really, the point was really well taken that, when Steven Spielberg, was making E.T., he set the film in suburbia because of the mundanity, how mundane it is, as a interesting contrast to the fantastical story taking place. But people who have grown up with things like E.T. and the Goonies have like fetishized the idea of the 80s kid riding his bike through the suburbs as if that is as if that's the fantastical part, as if that's the thing people really, really like. So you kind of see it with Stranger Things. And then you're seeing it with this where it's like he was always meant to be mundane. And we already got Star Wars' version of mundane. It was called Luke living on Tatooine in the original trilogy, right? So it's just, again, Jude Law is going to be in it, so I guess that's kind of cool, but it just seems kind of like I really don't care anymore. At this point, I'm just not going to be excited about stuff until I hear it's good. I just can't do it. I just can't get invested in stuff if it's going to keep turning out mediocre. Also got trailers from Moana 2. My opinions on Moana, I liked the original in concept, but the execution of the first film was very messy. It kind of felt like a first draft, it was a draft that just needed another rewrite. And notably, this film was originally going to be a streaming show, but it's graduating to be a theatrical film. And notably, Toy Story 2 was going to be a direct-to-video movie, but it was just so good that they decided to make it for theaters and make it longer, put more money into it. But from my understanding, this is not why this is happening. I had reported on this story a couple months back. This is probably more it's probably not due to the quality of this show and more so out of a financial necessity. I think Disney and all these other companies are realizing that it's just really, the business model of streaming is not what they thought it was, which they never should have thought it was that in the first place. So they're like, shit, we put a lot of money into this. Let's release this in theaters. Let's cut it down. So that we can make some actual dollars back and not just like, oh, we got some new subscribers and we got some ad revenue and all this stuff. I am excited for more Coconut People. They did show at the end of the trailer they're going to be back. I thought they may just be a one-off. They were my favorite part of the first one, so I am excited to see that. Speaking of Disney Plus shows, we got a trailer here or a teaser, if you will, for the Pixar Disney Plus series Win or Lose. So this is notably Pixar's first original long-form series. I think they were, I don't know if they still are, but they did like a Monsters Inc. spinoff called Monsters at Work. But this is going to be like their first original kind of premise. And I'm actually really excited for this because this is exactly what I want from them. Because it has a great art style and it focuses on real-world characters with real-world problems with an animated flair. And, you know, that was my big complaint with a lot of Pixar's films is it's like, you know, like why can't you just explore, like I said, real characters and not like a giraffe learning to find his place in the animal kingdom? Like why is it always that? Because when early Pixar would do stuff like that, it was always a cipher and always a very complex exploration of the real thematic ambitions. And to a point it still is, but it's very superficial. You know, one of my favorite Pixar movies of the last 5 or 10 years is Turning Red. I almost wish she didn't turn into a red panda. Like, I almost prefer just the parts where it's just her being a preteen girl getting into trouble with her friends and going through preteen girl stuff, right? And oftentimes people say with animation, if something's animated, it should have to be animated. That you shouldn't just make something just to make it animated. And number one, I disagree with that because that implies that animation is only something, it's like a tool in your toolkit that you only bust out when you need it, as opposed to its own unique creative expression. But even if that were true, I feel like people interpret that to mean do something, you should make your thing animated if you wouldn't be able to effectively pull it off in live action. And I think that's misguided. I think rather you should be animation. Obviously, you can have all of these kinds of stories, but I think with modern animation, particularly from Disney and Pixar, is an over-reliance on wacky, fantastical premises, where really, you know, you should sprinkle in more just on paper. It's just like, it could be just like a live action, regular people, quote unquote, movie. But it's the execution that makes it worthy of the animation medium. You know what I mean? If you go watch this trailer for the show Win or Lose, it has an animated, it has a flair to it, a stylistic flair. So it's just disappointing to see that most of, Disney and Pixar's output is like this, but hopefully Win or Lose kind of meets those expectations I have. A couple other trailers shown. They showed clips for the new Pixar film Elio, which again, kind of similar situation. It's a guy, and he gets abducted by an alien or something. I'm not really super well versed on it. They showed a clip for the second season of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. And they also did a little teaser for the live action Lilo and Stitch, which you can see pictured here. The Uncanny Valley is just odd. Something about it looks weird that he just has completely black, soulless eyes. And then I looked at the cartoon version. He also has completely black eyes. But just seeing it in 3 dimensions just looks weird. And it's like a weird Uncanny Valley thing. But it's being directed by the guy who did Marcel the Shell, which is one of my favorite movies. So, you know, I have to maybe hold my breath and see if I like it. But, you know, again, Disney just... It's like a meat grinder. They just put in all these talented filmmakers and just grind them out. Some footage was shown that we don't have, though I'm sure it's been leaked, people filming on their phones, but we don't have official footage for this. But footage was also shown for Tron Ares, so that's going to be like the 3rd Tron film people are really excited for. And notably, 9 Inch Nails is going to be composing the score, which actually sounds sick. And it's cool and all, but like, do people really care enough? Like, the people who really like Tron are excited. But I don't know if Tron is really getting people all worked up. It needs to have a really awesome trailer the way Tron Legacy did. It made people like all of a sudden huge Tron fans, 15 years ago. Also got footage for the MCU Disney Plus show Ironheart, which is going to be following, I forget her name, and I think this just speaks to the movie's quality, but the girl from Black Panther Wakanda Forever, the girl that they bring on, she's in college, and she's kind of almost like a new Tony Stark, and she develops her own kind of Iron Man-ish suit. She's Ironheart. She's getting her own show. I'm kind of excited for that since she was one of my favorite parts of that movie. We also got footage for Captain America Brave New World, Fantastic Four, stuff that was shown at Comic-Con a couple weeks ago. Also got footage for The Mandalorian and Grogu, a Star Wars film following the adventures of Mandalorian and Grogu, which I have not watched Mandalorian since Season 2, but from my understanding, they've reunited, even though the whole point of the end of Season 2 is about them going their separate ways. I don't even know what to say anymore. Also got footage for Andor Season 2. We got some announcements for Zootopia 2. It's going to introduce Kei-Wei Kwan, of course, from Everything Ever All at Once. He's going to be playing a character now in the series. And we also got footage for Daredevil Born Again, the reboot of the Netflix Daredevil show, now on Disney+. And then finally, in terms of some announcements here, the Freaky Friday sequel with Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan got an official title, Freakier Friday, with a little promotional photo of modern Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis doing like the, I'm in my mom's body. What was that line from the movie? I look like the Crypt Keeper. That movie's kind of funny. We also got announcements for a new National Geographic show called Do Not Attempt, and it's like a David Blaine magic show, I guess. We also got announcements for, some of these annoyed the shit out of me, Frozen 3, The Incredibles 3, Toy Story 5, which it's going to reunite Woody and all of them, and they're going to be, so supposedly it's going to be them fighting against tech, like iPads and stuff. I feel like them doing this undermines the ending of Toy Story 4, which itself was already undermining the ending of Toy Story 3, which controversially, in my opinion, undermined Toy Story 2 a little bit. So, I just reject this whole thing. But notably, it's going to be written and directed by Andrew Stanton. So, Andrew Stanton was like one of like the Pixar, founding fathers in a sense. He wrote, or at least was a co-writer on a bunch of films that, including Toy Story, Toy Story 2, Monsters, Inc. He also did some work on Toy Story 4 and also wrote the story, has a story credit for Toy Story 3. And of course, he wrote and directed Finding Nemo, WALL-E, and Finding Dory. So he has that track record. But now he's going to be writing and directing this film, which is interesting. We also got an announcement for a Pixar film called Hoppers, which, again, I'm happy to see an original idea, but like what I was saying before, it's original, but of course it has to be wacky, because the only way you can get people in is if they recognize the property or it's wacky. So Hoppers is going to be following a girl who, quote, and I shit you not, this is the exact quote from the press release or whatever, follows a girl who, quote, switches brains with beavers to learn about the secrets of beavers, end quote. What secrets do beavers have? I don't know. We're also getting a Disney Plus show. We already knew about this, but we just got more info. An Inside Out spin-off series called Dream Productions. It's going to be about the dream, exactly what's that, the dream productions that they have in that universe, where it's like the dreams are like shows that they put on for Riley while she sleeps. Who asked for this? Avatar 3 also got an official subtitle, so it's going to be Avatar, Fire, and Ash. They're really doing all the elements here. The first one was kind of earthy, and then the last one was water, and now they're doing fire. So, notably, the reason why the animated series Avatar The Last Airbender had to have the subtitle The Last Airbender is because James Cameron trademarked the name Avatar back in like the late 90s when he first started developing Avatar. So it's funny now that not only do they have that relationship, in a sense, but now they're doing all these elements kind of like The Last Airbender. And then a random announcement, a Dwayne The Rock Johnson movie about monster trucks called Monster Jam. I don't even know what to say about a lot of this. Again, it's kind of like what I was saying with the theme parks, is that if you notice here, it's just a lot of stuff related to things we already know and love, or potentially love. And I just feel like Disney, they are I think corporate America in general, this isn't a Disney unique issue, but corporate America, especially in the entertainment industry, is just so short-sighted. Because these guys and gals, these top positions are very short-term motivated, because that's how their bonuses are calculated. They're not going to be, a lot of these people aren't going to be in these top executive positions for decades. They're going to maybe do it for 4 years, then jump to a new company, do that for 5 years, then over here for 3, and then here for 7. And, so there's really not a lot of incentive to build something. So none of this is surprising. That's the thing, is that I'm not surprised. I'm just disappointed. And I think it's just that, all of these things that they're remaking or making sequels to or making reboots of or whatever you want to, or spin-offs, were once original ideas. That you can do as many of these franchise pillagings as you want, but you need enough original content to replenish the well. And it really should be like 75% original, 25%, follow-up of some kind or continuation of a franchise. But they basically have flipped it. And not only have they flipped it, it's really like 95 or 90% franchise IP-based and then like 10% original. And then they really don't put a lot of weight behind the original stuff. It fails and they go, see, this is why we shouldn't do original stuff. And it's like, well, you didn't really try. So it is just disappointing to see, Disney they just don't understand. Like, they're screwing themselves over. I'll get over it. There's plenty of other amazing films to watch, including their own movies from years or decades ago. So really, the only person that they're screwing over is themselves. And they're gonna have to make. They've made their bed, and they're gonna have to sleep in it eventually. It's just a matter. And I think they've started to sleep in it, and they're trying to remake the bed. But I'm not sure if that's gonna work for them.